Kora was a young mother, homeless and hungry, holding her sick baby Kyla in her arms. One evening, with nowhere else to turn, she walked into a restaurant and begged a stranger, Mr. Silas, for his leftover food. But what that quiet billionaire did next completely shocked her. Who really is Silas, and how did one small moment change everything for Kora and her baby? Sit back and find out as we dive into this powerful story. It was a warm evening in Lekki, Lagos, inside Royal Green's restaurant. Many people were sitting at their tables, smiling, laughing, and enjoying their food. The restaurant was filled with happiness. The waiters walked up and down, bringing food and drinks. In a corner seat, Mr. Silas sat quietly all by himself. He was a middle-aged real estate billionaire, rich and powerful, but very sad. In front of him was a plate of fried rice and chicken and a glass of chilled juice. Silas slowly tasted his food. His mind was somewhere else, far away from the restaurant, somewhere in the past. He whispered quietly to himself, "It's been 2 years without you, without our son." His grip tightened on his glass as he fell deep into his memories. "Where are you now? Do you still remember me?" Across from him was a seat that stayed empty, a seat that should have been filled by someone he cared for, someone he lost a few years ago in a tragedy. Silas kept looking at that seat, thinking about his wife and his little son. His heart was heavy with pain. "I remember the day we went to the shopping mall together. I remember his small hands. I remember their smiles. I wish I could bring them back, just for a moment." He pressed his hands tighter. His food grew cold, but he didn't care. All that mattered to him was the love he had lost, a love he could never get back. Silas whispered quietly, "One day, I will see you again. Until then, I will carry you in my heart forever." Silas was just about to lift his glass and take a sip when a soft voice interrupted him. "Excuse me, sir. May I have your leftovers, please, for my baby?" Silas turned his head slowly and saw a young woman. She was wearing a poor, worn-out dress, and she was carrying a small baby close to her chest. The baby's big, soulful eyes were looking directly at the food on Silas's plate, the fried rice. The restaurant fell silent. All the people nearby stopped talking and turned their eyes toward the woman and the baby. Some whispered quietly, wondering what would happen. Silas's heart started to beat faster. He held his glass tighter as he tried to make a decision. Who is this woman? Why is she begging for food? What kind of life is she living? He felt something deep in his heart, something he hadn't felt in a long time. Silas paused for a moment, looking at the woman's face. All he saw was just pure humility and a mother's desperate need to feed her baby, who looked like she hadn't eaten in days. He slowly slid his plate forward toward her. "You can have the food, madam," he said. The woman whispered quietly, Thank you so much." Her hands trembled as she carefully opened a small black nylon bag. She emptied the food into the nylon bag, holding it like a small treasure for her and her baby, and tied it safely. Silas kept looking at them, wondering, who are they? Where do they come from? How can I help them without hurting their dignity? He fell into silence, not realizing that this moment was the start of a big change in his life, a change he would never forget. The woman whispered quietly, "Thank you. May God bless you, sir." She turned and slowly walked toward the restaurant's exit, holding her baby close to her chest and the food safely in the black nylon bag. Silas kept looking at her. His heart started to beat faster. Without thinking, he stood up quietly and began to follow her. He kept a little distance, not too close so he wouldn't scare her as he walked after her down a small side street away from the busy city's main roads. Silas whispered to himself, "Where is she going? What kind of life does she live with her baby? Why is nobody there to help her?" He turned a corner, following the woman further down a narrow path, staying back in the shadows, not making a sound. His heart pounded in his chest, unsure what he was about to see. He then saw something that made his heart break. The woman walked up to a dilapidated building, its walls nearly falling down. Next to the building stood an abandoned, rusty coaster bus, its seats gone, and some of its windows broken. Yet inside that bus was their refuge, their home, a place where the woman kept her baby sheltered from the rain and the cold nights. Silas whispered quietly to himself, "Is this really where they live? Inside a bus? In a place like this?" He stayed, hidden in the shadows, not making a sound. His mind was battling. Should I come forward and help them, or will I make things more difficult for them? What can I do to ease their suffering without scaring them? Silas stood for a moment watching and thinking about what to do. He didn't want to scare them or push them away. He didn't want to be too forward and risk making her feel that he might have an ulterior motive. He needed time to figure out the right way to help them without causing them more worries or trouble. Every morning, before Kora and her baby Kyla woke up, something kind happened. A small package was left near the entrance of the bus, a package with baby formula, diapers, food, and warm blankets. Kora would wake up and find the package there, and tears would fall down her face. She was so happy and so thankful. One morning, there was something new with the package. Inside, Kora found a small piece of paper. It had a phone number and a short note that said, "Call me if you ever need help." Kora held the paper close to her heart. Later that day, Kora walked down the street with her baby in her arms. She begged people if someone could let her borrow their phone. "Please, I want to call someone and I don't have a phone. Please, could I use your phone for a minute?" A kind woman nodded. "Of course, you can use mine." Kora dialed the number. The phone rang and kept ringing, but nobody answered. Kora tried again, but still no answer. Kora sighed quietly, gave back the phone, and said, "Thank you." She walked back home, wondering who it was that kept helping her. Someone kind, someone without a face, someone who cared. Silas sat alone in his office. The sun had gone down, but he didn't notice. Papers were on his table, but his eyes were far away. He leaned back in his chair and let out a long sigh. His mind kept going back to the woman and her baby. "It's been over a week since I found out where they sleep," he said to himself softly. "Inside that old bus with no light, no safety, and that baby in her arms." Then a painful memory hit him. He closed his eyes and saw the face of his late wife, then his son. "What if that was them?" he whispered. "What if my own wife and son had to sleep on the street like that? Wouldn't I hope someone helped them?" Silas looked toward the windows. His voice grew firm. "I need to do something. Fast," he said. "No more waiting." He picked up the intercom on his desk and pressed a button. "Get me Mr. Johnson," he said. "Tell him I want to see him now." Mr. Johnson was the head of the home staging team, the person in charge of setting up and furnishing new apartments. A few minutes later, there was a knock on the door. "Come in," Silas said. Mr. Johnson entered, looking curious. "Good evening, sir." "Good evening, Johnson. Sit down." Johnson sat quietly. Silas looked at him and said, "I need you to get one of our new apartments ready, fully furnished, with everything a woman and her baby would need, bed, cooker, baby things, everything. Do you understand?" Johnson nodded slowly. "Yes, sir." "May I ask who the apartment is for?" Silas paused, then said, "It's for someone who doesn't know I'm doing this. The person I'm helping is a woman in a very bad condition. She's been sleeping in an abandoned bus with her baby. I want her to have a safe place to live." Johnson's eyes widened. "I understand, sir. I'll take care of it. And one more thing," Silas added, "if she refuses to take it, maybe out of fear or worry, then at least I know I tried." Johnson stood. "I'll handle it immediately, sir. You can count on me." Silas gave a small nod, then turned back to his window, heart heavy, but determined to do what was right. That night, rain poured in Lecky. Inside the abandoned bus, Kora noticed her baby Kyla crying weakly. She touched her and felt the heat. Kyla's body was burning. Kora panicked. She wrapped her in a cloth, tied her to her chest, and ran out into the rain. Her only thought was to get to the hospital. She arrived at St. Thomas General Hospital, wet and shaking. She ran to the front desk. "Please," she begged. "My baby has a high fever. Help us." A nurse asked, "Do you have any deposit or money?" Kora shook her head. "No, I don't. But please, help her first. I'll find a way to pay later." The nurse looked at her with pity. "I'm sorry, madam. We can't treat her without payment. It's the hospital rule." Kora dropped to her knees, holding Kyla tightly. "Please, I don't want to lose her." She looked around and saw a phone on a nurse's desk. She turned to the nurse. "Please, can I use your phone to call someone? It's an emergency." The nurse replied softly, "There's not enough airtime for a call, but you can send a message." Kora nodded. Double quotes. "Yes, please." She brought out the small paper with the number. It was already wet, but the number was still visible. Then she typed a message. "Please help us. My child is very sick. We are at St. Thomas General Hospital." She sent it, gave the phone back, and sat quietly at the hospital reception. Outside, the rain had started falling heavily. Inside, Kora held Kyla close. Her baby was now shivering. But she kept praying for one thing, that the stranger who had been helping them would see the message before it was too late. At that same moment, in a quiet part of Lekki, Silas was lying on his bed. He had just turned off the lights, ready to sleep. The rain was falling softly outside. Suddenly, his phone vibrated on the bedside table. He reached for it and looked at the screen. It was a message from an unknown number. He opened it slowly and read, "Please help us. My child is very sick. We are at St. Thomas General Hospital." His heart skipped. He sat up quickly. "It's her," he said. "The woman from the coaster bus." He jumped out of bed, grabbed his trousers and shirt, and got dressed. There was no time to waste. He picked up his car keys and rushed out of the house. The rain hit his windscreen as he drove. Within minutes, Silas arrived at St. Thomas General Hospital. He ran into the reception. His eyes searched the room and then he saw her. Kora sat on the hospital bench, holding her baby close, her eyes full of tears. "Madam," he called. She looked up in shock. Silas walked to her side and looked at Kyla, who was breathing fast in her arms. Silas turned to the nurses. "Get a doctor here now," he said firmly. "This baby needs help. Don't waste one more second." The nurses jumped into action. A doctor came quickly and took the baby from Kora's arms. Kora followed them, still crying. Moments later, Kyla was placed on a hospital bed. The nurses set up drips and gave her medicine. The treatment began. Kora turned to Silas, her eyes full of emotion. She fell to her knees and said, "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. You are a gift from God. I don't know what I would have done without you." Silas quickly helped her up. "Please don't kneel," he said softly. Silas stayed a little longer, making sure Kyla was being treated well. He asked the doctor a few questions, then followed him to his office and made the necessary payments. After sorting everything out, Silas walked back into the hospital room, where Kora was sitting quietly beside her child. He stepped closer and asked gently, "Madam, what is your name?" Kora looked up at him, her eyes red from crying. She stood slowly and said, "My name is Kora, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't know who you are, but I will never forget this night. You saved my baby's life." Silas gave her a soft smile. "My name is Silas," he said calmly, "and you don't need to thank me. I only did what any human being should do." Tears ran down Kora's cheeks as she looked at him again. "God will bless you, sir. May you never lack anything good in your life." Silas nodded and said, "I'll check back tomorrow morning. Your baby will be fine." Then he turned and walked out, leaving Kora standing there, full of hope. She sat beside the hospital bed again, holding Kyla's tiny hand gently. The machines beeped softly, and Kyla's breathing became more calm. Kora looked at her child and whispered with a smile, "Help has come, my child. Help has come." The next morning, Silas woke up early. He got ready for work. Before leaving the house, he picked up his phone and called his usual restaurant. "Good morning. Please help me pack a hot breakfast, 2 portions. I'll send someone now to pick it up." An hour later, the food was delivered to his office. Silas picked up the food, got into his car, and drove straight to St. Thomas General Hospital. When he walked into the hospital room, the first thing he saw was baby Kyla sleeping calmly, a drip in her tiny hand. Her breathing was now steady. Silas felt a wave of relief, but then he looked at Kora. She was sitting beside the bed, her eyes red and swollen. It was clear she hadn't slept all night. Silas stepped forward quietly. "Good morning." Kora looked up, surprised to see him again. "Good morning, sir," she replied softly. "I brought you breakfast," Silas said, handing her the warm bag. Kora took it slowly, her hands shaking a little. "Thank you so much. You need strength," Silas said. "Your baby needs you strong." She nodded and opened the food. The smell alone made her close her eyes in peace. Silas stayed for a while, then excused himself and went straight to the doctor's office. After a few minutes, he came out and returned to the room with a small smile on his face. "The doctor said your baby is fine now," he said. "She responded well to treatment. They will discharge her today by 5 p.m. Kora's face lit up. "Thank God. Thank you, sir. You have done so much for us." Silas reached into his pocket and pulled out some cash. He placed it gently beside her. "In case you need anything else." Kora stared at the money, then looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Sir, I don't even know what to say again. God bless you. Truly, God bless you." Silas smiled gently. "Take care of your child. I'll check on you again soon." Then he turned and walked out of the room. leaving behind a mother who now had hoped panned a baby who was finally safe. About 30 minutes after Silas returned to his office, he was seated behind his desk, reading through some documents. Just then, there was a knock on the door. "Come in," he said. The door opened gently, and Mr. Johnson, the head of the home staging team, stepped in. He was holding a small file in his hand. "Good afternoon, sir," Mr. Johnson greeted. Silas nodded. "Yes, Johnson. Any update?" Mr. Johnson smiled. "Yes, sir. The apartment you told me to prepare is ready. I made sure everything was done quickly. The furnishing was done just like you suggested." Silas leaned back in his chair and gave a small nod. "Good, that's good." Mr. Johnson placed the file on the table. "All the keys and papers are inside, sir." Silas tapped the table gently with his fingers. He was silent for a few seconds. "Thank you, Johnson," he said finally. "You've done well. I'll take it from here." Mr. Johnson smiled and said, "All right, sir." With that, he turned and left the office. Silas slowly picked up the file on his desk, opened it, and looked at the apartment photos. Everything looked clean and peaceful. At exactly 5:15 p.m., just as the doctor had said, Kyla was officially discharged from the hospital. Kora carried her baby gently in her arms, wrapped in a soft blanket. She looked tired but thankful as she walked slowly toward the hospital exit. A nurse came from behind and called out, "Excuse me, madam," the nurse said politely. Kora turned. "Yes, there's someone waiting for you at the reception," the nurse said. Kora's face changed. "Someone, but I'm not expecting anybody." The nurse smiled kindly. "I was only asked to give you the message." Kora nodded slowly and walked toward the reception area. Her heart began to beat a little faster. She thought, if it was Mr. Silas, wouldn't he have come to see us in the room? She reached the front desk and looked around. Then she leaned forward and asked the receptionist, "Please, I was told someone is waiting for me here." The receptionist raised her hand and pointed to a man sitting on one of the chairs nearby. "That man over there," she said. Kora turned. The man stood up immediately. He was wearing a neat dark suit. His face looked calm and respectful. "Are you Miss Kora?" he asked politely. Kora held Kyla a little tighter and nodded. Double quotes, "Yes, I am." The man smiled lightly. "Good evening, Ma. My name is David. My boss asked me to come and pick you." "Pick me?" Kora asked, looking confused. "To where? Who is your boss?" The man answered quickly, "Mr. Silas." The moment Kora heard that name, her shoulders relaxed. She took a deep breath. "Oh, okay, that's fine." David looked at her and said, "He just wants to show you something. Please don't worry. You're safe with me." Kora looked at Kyla, then at the man again. Something told her to trust him. She nodded. "All right, let's go." And with that, she followed the man outside, not knowing what was waiting for her but hoping it was something good. They drove for about 25 minutes. Kora sat quietly in the back seat, holding Kyla close to her chest. Her eyes stayed on the window. Soon, they entered a quiet estate. Every building looked alike, painted in soft cream and brown colors. The whole place was calm and serene. Kora's heart began to beat fast. "Where is he taking us?" she thought. "What is this place?" The car slowed down and stopped in front of one of the houses. The man stepped out and walked to Kora's side. He opened the door gently. "Please follow me," he said politely. Kora nodded. She stepped out, still carrying Kyla. The ground was clean. The flowers near the house were fresh and green. The man brought out a key and opened the door. They walked into the house, and Kora froze. She stood still in the middle of the living room. Her eyes moved from the soft white chairs to the glass table, then to the bright curtains and the big wall clock. There was a kitchen just across the room, already set with plates, cups, and even baby food on the shelf. The air smelled like lemon and soap. Everything looked like a house from the movies, clean, bright, and beautiful. The man turned to her and smiled. He brought out the same key he had used to open the door and stretched it toward her. Then he said quietly, "My boss said, this apartment is yours now." Kora blinked. She didn't move. She didn't speak. Her arms held Kyla tighter, but her whole body felt weak. She looked at the key, then at the man, then around the room again, and then the tears came, slow, quiet tears that rolled down her cheeks and dropped on the tiled floor. She opened her mouth to speak, but no word came out. She tried again, but her voice was stuck. Her chest was full of emotion. Her knees were shaking. Finally, she managed to whisper, "Please, take me to him." As the car pulled up in front of a tall glass building, Kora looked up and saw the name boldly written on the signboard, Silas Realty Holdings. Her heart jumped. She looked at the building, then at the driver. He hadn't said much during the ride, but now, without waiting for him to even open the door, Kora held Kyla tightly to her chest and jumped out of the car. She started running straight toward the entrance. The security men at the gate stood still in surprise. They saw her running, holding a baby to her chest, but none of them stopped her. They had seen her come out of their boss's car. They knew, if she was inside that car, then she must be someone important. Kora pushed the glass door open and entered the big office space. Everywhere was quiet. Staff were seated, working on their computers. She didn't care. She shouted, "Where is he? Please, where is he?" Everyone turned sharply. They all stared. The secretary stood up fast and began to walk toward her, but just before she could stop Kora, the driver walked in behind her and raised his hand. "It's okay," he said calmly. "Please show her to the boss's office." The secretary paused. Then she pointed at the last door down the hallway. Kora didn't wait. She ran toward the door and pushed it open. Silas was seated behind his table, reading some papers. Before he could speak, Kora dropped to her knees across the table. Tears ran down her face. "Thank you, sir. Thank you," she cried. "God will bless you. You have saved my child. You have given us a home. I don't even know what to say. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much." Silas stood up slowly. He walked to her side and gently pulled her up. "Please don't cry," he said in a soft voice. "What's the point of having all this money if I can't use it to help someone?" He paused, looking into her teary eyes. "We all came into this world with nothing, and will leave with nothing. What matters at the end is how many people we helped while we were alive." Kora wiped her eyes, still shaking. Silas continued, "A man can own 20 houses, but he can only sleep in one room at a time. No matter how rich you are, you can't eat more than one plate of food at once." Kora let out a small, shaky laugh through her tears. Silas smiled gently. "I hope the kitchen is stocked with food items," he asked. Kora nodded. "Yes, sir. Everything was there, even baby things." "Good," Silas said. "I'll check on you later. I also want to hear your story, but for now, go and rest." "Thank you, sir," she whispered again. "I will never forget this." Silas watched her walk out, holding her child, a woman who just got a second chance at life. That it was a quiet Saturday morning inside the beautiful apartment. Sunlight was peeking through the curtains. Kora was kneeling in front of the couch, gently tickling little Kyla, who lay there giggling. As Kyla laughed out loud, kicking her tiny legs in the air, Kora smiled. It was the first time in a long while she had seen her baby this happy, warm, and full of life. But then she heard a knock at the door. She paused. The knock came again, soft but clear. She walked slowly to the door. Who could that be? She thought, a little curious. She opened the door. Gently, and standing right there was Mr. Silas, dressed simply, holding a small gift bag in one hand. "Good morning," he said with a calm smile. Kora was surprised, but quickly stepped aside. "Good morning, sir. Please come in." "Thank you," he said, walking in. As he looked around the neat room, he smiled. "You've made this place feel like a real home." Kora nodded. "I try. Thank you again for everything." Silas walked over to the couch and saw little Kyla staring up at him. He bent slightly, waved at her and said, "Hello, princess." Kyla blinked, then smiled. Silas handed Kora the bag. "Just a few things for her. Toys, some clothes, and some fruit." "Thank you, sir," Kora said softly. They both sat down. There was a moment of calm. Then Silas looked at her and asked gently, "Kora, if you don't mind, can I ask you something?" She nodded slowly. "How did you end up in that bus with your baby?" Kora looked down at her hands. There was silence for a few seconds. Silas noticed and said, "If you're not ready to talk about it, that's okay. No pressure." Kora looked up quickly and shook her head. "No, I'm ready. There's nothing to hide." She looked at her baby, then at Silas. "It's a long story," she whispered. "I'm here," Silas said softly. "Take your time." Then she looked at Silas and began, "I was in a relationship with a young man I met back in school.